anyway, I was saying that Chris Balmer and his colleague Ferran, I think it's all very apparent that over a 3-month period, we hit the touchstones, those people that we know that are so important to the Columbia College community and the university. I'm very proud that Peter Hebert and the committee asked me to create a virtual studio tour. I remember, I guess it was 2 reunions ago, that we gathered at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and Peter and Jeff, didn't we go down into the crypt?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and we were in person.
An incredible experience.
Yeah, we were in person. We could, it was the freedom of being ourselves in an unusual space. I spent 3 decades, in the crypt, and it's not an easy environment to be in. No complaints. Dean Jane Parks Morton, who appointed me in 1983, and of course, the unveiling of the Peace Fountain was in May 18th, 1985. I had 14 months to take the small model to its scale up. And it's the largest sculpture, and scale is important in terms of expression in public art, but it's not the only thing. It's the meaning of the symbology. When you're bringing the goodness of St. Michael, represented in the New York City Police prayer card, to the forefront, I think it was a great honor to have that commission, and especially with bringing New York City's first children's sculpture garden, which was referred to in the interviews with Dean Kowalski, who, I've served now 4 deans over these past 4 decades. And even though I'm not in the crypt for the past 10 years, I'm giving a lot of sculpture workshops during the warmer months of the summer to emerging younger artists at the Peace Fountain site. And last July, late July, 3 of my students from the Art Students League and 5 former apprentices gathered together with 8 different instructors, including Neil Katz, the Associate Director of Skidmore, Owens and Merrill, who gave a fantastic tour of the cathedral architecture, both on the facade and in the interior. And we have lots of documents, art journals. We produced the students' works in bronze, which they own. And now, as the chair of the National Sculpture Society Education Committee, I'm forming an exhibition at their gallery this summer or in the fall to highlight what I think was a major theme about intergenerational learning. That if we all had great Columbia teachers, for instance, that we give back in our elder years. And not only during one moment, but continuously. As Jacques says in As You Like It in Act 2, Scene 7, he describes the 7 ages of man. And I think that's sort of a yardstick in poetic terms that is quite profound.
Greg, we only have, I think, about 15 or 20 minutes left here. And I'd like to kind of open this up to questions from the audience. I'm not certain how that will will happen, or at least the logistics, and maybe Ashley
Peter, I
or,
can jump in. Yeah, I see
Okay.
who raises their hand, so I'll just call on whomever raises their hand. Stephen is first.
Hi, Greg. I remember we lived across the hall from each other as freshmen in Fernald. And I remember Tashi was on the floor with us as well. And I remember visiting you in your dorm room then as a freshman, and you would share some of your, I don't know, we say the lithographs or woodcuts that you were working on. And I just had this sense of, you know, I'm in the presence of somebody who's going to become a very famous, very influential artist. I mean, you know, I certainly knew it in my.
Steve,
Yeah.
we're losing
Yeah.
you.
Oh, well, I was just muted. Anyway, I just, you know, felt like I was very much in the presence of someone who was going to become a great artist and very influential artist. And I was there in 2004 at the 250th celebration when you, I guess when the Scholars Lion was unveiled, displayed for the first time, and you took us on that tour of your studio and down into the crypt. Which was very, very special. What I wanted to ask you is, you know, I mean, first of all, I'm very much impressed by the range of your work. You know, so many different areas, so many different contexts, and so many different environments and people. You've been referred to as a spiritual realist, and I'm wondering what that spiritual component means to you, and in particular, what drew you to the Cathedral of St. John the Divine?
Reading the words of Anthony Jansen, whose father, W.H. Jansen, wrote the most widely read history of art. And I was introduced to Anthony.
Greg, can you speak up a little bit?
I was introduced to Anthony Jansen, the son of W.H. Jansen, who took a survey of my work and coined the phrase that you just quoted. And I think I'm very proud to have that brought forth in a question. You know, the expression, let's put it this way: the creative act in the humanities and in the fine arts has many high challenges. And if you become excellent hard work, sometimes
Can't hear. Yeah, can't hear.
put yourself on a limb so that you have, like the clam produces the oyster. In other words, the little grain of sand produces the pearl. You know what I'm saying? In other words, you don't want to repeat anything formulaic. And that has led me on my roadmap of my career, as you described, to different sites and different approaches in site specificity, so that when I examine those possibilities, the clues are within the immediate site. And I think that's what Stanley Wells and Dr. Paul Edmondson was referring to in the garden. It certainly is true at the Scholars Lion. The pedestal has the same stone as those campus, on the North Campus architecture. I worked with the architect of the university, and they built the pedestal, I built the sculpture. The idea was to be site specific so that, as Austin Quigley once told me, I knew it was successful when people, undergraduates, would say, I'll meet you at the Lion. I'll leave it right there.
Great, thank you. I have Erwin next, if you don't mind unmuting yourself. And
Yeah.
then Greg, just a reminder, can you speak up just a little bit? We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
I'm at total volume on my computer. I'll
Good.
just,
Yeah, it really seems to vary.
Yeah.
As he goes into his talk, it gets louder, and when he first starts, it's lower. So something is going on that's dynamic.
I think it's Zoom because even as we watched the 25-minute film, the sound was perfectly clear, but there was a sort of a soft focus. Did you all notice that? With the visuals.
Anyway,
The question is, Erwin,
well, two things. One, if you really want to know what a successful sculptor is, at our 40th reunion, I was talking to Greg and said, my son, who went to another college, I said, boy, outside of his house, there is some of the most phenomenal sculpture. It's brilliant. It's out in the courtyard in front of it, and the stuff is just great. Are you familiar with it? And Greg said, yeah, I did them. So it's really easy to suck up to Greg when you know he did something. But when that's your reaction and you don't have a clue as to who did it, that to me is more successful than meeting at the Lion. My question for you, Greg, is whether you have done works other, I guess these are all bronzes. Have you done other sculptural media?
the answer to that is my specialty is bronze casting, model to monument, site specificity, and working with ideas, and also observation of nature. You know, if you are carving, that is the subtractive method. As Michelangelo said, all I have done is to take away the excess to reveal the figure. On the other hand, the analytical method is that we start with the concept and the different external sketches and whatnot, and then from nothing we build up something. I have been in Carrara. I have worked in carving in my younger years, and I just gravitated to the analytical method. Hence, I have casted in many metals, but primarily bronze, specifically 8535 metal, which is 85% copper and 5%, 5%, 5% tin, lead, and zinc. That gives you, as you can see next time you're on the campus, some of the most sublime cupric greens, olive greens, and ferric oxide browns. And the whole point about the colorization of bronze is just like turning the chapters and the pages, reading a novel. There's a layering, there's a beginning, and there's an outcome. That's what I was trying to describe in my interview. Does that help with your question?
Absolutely.
Great. Our next question is from Terry.
Hi, Greg. It's been 50 years since I last saw you, but I'm right proud of my Alpha Delta Phi brother there, and tip of the hat to you as well, Jeff. Anyway, it's my memory that you inhabited the crypt earlier than 1981. Do I have that right?
No, Jeff and I would go over and play basketball. Isn't that right, Jeff? At the parking lot. It was sort of a children's school playground. Jeff and I would shoot hoops.
Oh, okay.
Is that right, Jeff? Do you remember that? I mean, we did have some downtime for Columbia sports. We weren't fencers and we weren't wrestlers, but we would do some dribbling.
So it wasn't until 1981 that you actually put your materials into the crypt.
Well, my interview was provided, my introduction to James Sparks Morton was in 1982. That led to, actually he spoke in Gramercy Park at the unveiling of the Fantasy Fountain, which is the prototype 6-foot vertical composition that alludes to the sun, moon, the peaceful giraffes that revolve around. It's basically a sculpture directed at the audience of younger children. And what he said at the podium, the dean, was, I have invited Greg Wyatt to be the sculptor in residence to bring his ideas about art and education where they will be welcome. That's always been very kind and remembered. I hope that briefly encapsulates the idea of spiritual realism.
Okay, because my memory is from the dawn of our careers. It must have been I showed up there maybe then in 83 or 84 to you, and unfortunately you were not there at the time, but the venue that you had within the crypt, I remember there were at least 2 floors that one could see materials in, and you were incredibly prolific. So I'm just again want to say I'm mighty proud of you, and thanks for what you've done.
Well, I salute you and I salute the class in my 50th reunion. And if I had a glass of champagne, I would raise it for all of us to toast like we would have done in person. Here's my cup of leaf tea, and that's a symbol of our ever-present gratitude to Columbia College. Shall we all?
I do have another question from a couple of people in the chat. Vincent had a question.
Okay, I apologize, Greg. It isn't a question. It's really more of a remembrance. First of all, I have never seen you in a beret before, so I thought that was really remarkable. All the years I know you, which is impressive. You look really like an artist. You just saved your easel and your palette.
I'll have my Columbia beanie.
Second, I just
doesn't quite fit. I don't know.
Okay, I distinctly remember when we were trying to get the Lion funded with our classmates, and how much you participated in letting us help fund the Lion, at least the base of it, and having class of '71 on it, which we're all very proud. I remember soon after the Lion was unveiled, there was this college freshman in the buff riding the beast, and your comment was, this was the greatest honor you could have, that they personalized the Lion for the college. I'll never forget that comment. It was really impressive. The other thing is I had the great privilege of coming down to to the crypt to see your sculpture, which was, anyone who's done that, I can't imagine they weren't very profoundly touched by that experience. But I also had the great pleasure of seeing some of your watercolor, which you never talk about and never show. But I have to say, you are more than just a sculptor, sir. And I think you should at least tell people how versatile your art is.
Well, do you see this jar? Over the Memorial Day weekend, here in the city, we had a lot of rain. And tap water has chemicals, even though my wife and I have filters. But rainwater is the purest water. What I'm alluding to is, yes, my art journals are in the medium of watercolor. And I haven't exhibited watercolors because it's an art journal. It's part of reflective thought, and it's part of drawing and painting in support of, a tranquil, low-key interiority in the tradition of fine arts. I wanted to specialize, and I did. Jeff Knowles was telling you about the ceramics that I did at Teachers College. It's a wonderful medium as a bridge to all the three-dimensional realms. Has a consistency that is inviting, it's flexible. And of course, there's a lot of drama with the firing, the kiln. So, I majored in art history, but my master's at Teachers College focused on glazed chemistry. I spent many a long day and night at TC with the medium of ceramics. But I took the perspective that it's better to do your own research scientifically, invent your own glaze, your own porcelain, your own clay body, and it's possible to do that. And what I'm getting at is my art journals include remembrances of my reflective thought. What did I learn? Why is it important? What are the things that you can privately look back? I mean, all of you, what did you do at 2:30 last week on Thursday? Well, I'm not keeping or talking about a diary. Who cares about whether you had a cup of coffee or tea or something? No, this is a journal. A journal is entirely different. And to document means that you can go back in your middle age. What were the things that I was thinking about? How did they fit into, certain ideas and patterns? That's why I have not exhibited, because once I exhibit the watercolors, it's no longer private. I will exhibit and donate and for permanent placement all of the sculptures. That's my mission in my elder years in public art in 3 dimensions. Now, if any of you would like to comment on the watercolors, which you probably have not seen, then, that could be another conversation.
So Greg, this is Tosh speaking. As a matter, hi pal. As a matter of general interest, I wondered if you could all tell us all whether you work in silence or you have music playing and appropriate music playing. But before you answer that, I wanted to say that of all the high-minded comments I could make to the interviewer for your film, he seemed to have edited out the fact that I would wander into your dorm room at Fernald across from Ferris's room and across from mine and Steve Chervin's rooms. And you'd often have a guitar in hand and would be picking out notes. And you'd be joined by the talents of said Jeff Knowles, eminent lawyer that he is, but who was a pretty cool blues player. And so with respect to music, as you may well play appropriate classical music for the work that you're doing, I wanted everyone to know that you have roots in, Paul Butterfield and Electric Flag. And one of the highlights of my college life was being at a Fillmore East concert with you and Jeff Knowles and others in a row ahead of me, listening to the Memphis Sound, horns, and Eddie Floyd and Sam and Dave on stage all at once. So with that introduction back to the seriousness of the music that you play when you work or that you don't play, that would be my question.
Well, it's not the sounds of silence. As a matter of fact, Kurt Masur, conducting the Majorsky Pictures exhibition, is something that I go back to. I call it watercolor weekend. It's my private time on Saturday and Sunday to have not only the background, but in the forefront, because the beauty of the tones, the shades of the acoustical magic that Kurt Masur, Leonard Bernstein, the great conductors. You know, it's sort of like sculpture. It's very physical. It's very demanding. Timing is everything. It's a high bar standard, and I respect that. And so I bring classical music, and I did the same thing with Jeff Knowles and you at the Fillmore East. You know, the rhythm, the harmony, the excitement. Well, there's different ways to be excited by different stimuli. And so the landscape of music includes almost a yin yang of the unity of polar opposites. N'est-ce pas?
Well said. Well said, dude.
At this time, I'll turn it back over to Peter and Jeff.
Hi, Peter and Jeff.
Hey, listen, this has been fantastic. I wish we could all do this in person, but I want to thank you, Greg, for all you've done for Columbia. Your work in previous reunions, but also the lasting legacy that you've left with the Scholars Lion. For everything else that you've done in your career, that is something that is most meaningful, I think, to Columbians. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to you, again, your college roommate, Jeff, for some final thoughts and remarks.
So one thing we didn't touch on today, other than mentioning Stratford-on-Avon, is the amount of time Greg spent in Europe, teaching and working all over Europe. Also in the United States, has spent my career, as Peter did, in Washington, D.C. Greg has the sculpture at the entrance to the Arlington Cemetery. He has had many exhibitions on Capitol Hill. He's had a major influence. He's got sculptures on the Georgetown University campus. I also have a home in South Carolina, and Greg has a number of sculptures at Brook Green Gardens, which is a fabulous outdoor sculpture museum. Greg's on the board of trustees of Brook Green Gardens. It's a phenomenal place if you've never been there. Also the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. So I've been with Greg all over the country, literally all over the country. But he's had a fabulous career, and as he mentioned, has many miles to go before he sleeps. So Greg, our congratulations to you and to a great future ahead of you. And I hope we can all get together, as Peter said, to really redo the 50th reunion, perhaps next year or sometime soon.
Hey, on that note, in the fall, around homecoming, save that weekend, save the date.
Toast with champagne. Congratulations to us all. 50th reunion. What a milestone. What a pleasure to be with all.
And what a class.
What a class across the board, all the disciplines. I'm proud of them.
Bravo, and thank you.
Class act.
All right.